Why money exists, a historical and legal analysis. 1. The standard origin story of money. The conventional narrative claims that money evolved out of barter. The tale is familiar: one person grows grain, another catches fish, and both discover the burden of needing a double coincidence of wants. This story suggests money emerged simply to make trade more efficient. Yet the historical evidence does not support this. So what does that actually mean? It means the story nearly everyone hears, including in early schooling, is more myth than fact. The idea of money arising spontaneously from barter is tidy, simple, and completely unproven. Footnote. This section outlines the orthodox view of money's origin and its weaknesses. 2. The goldsmith story and the birth of banking. The next chapter in the orthodox narrative introduces gold. Because gold was scarce, durable, and transportable, it supposedly became the medium of exchange. People stored it with goldsmiths for protection, received paper receipts, and soon used those receipts in everyday transactions. Goldsmiths learned that not all receipts would be redeemed at once, allowing them to lend more receipts than the gold they held. This is the deposit expansion explanation for the birth of banking. It provides a hook, simple characters, a safe, and a clever discovery. But the simplicity hides deeper issues. Actual historical systems were far more complex, and gold rarely functioned as the universal anchor the story portrays. Footnote. This section explains the goldsmith-based explanation for fractional reserve banking. 3. The orthodox definition of money. Under the traditional view, money's essential role is as a medium of exchange. Specific assets, coins, notes, or other objects, fulfill this function. Other functions, such as store of value or unit of account, are framed as secondary. This appears logical on the surface, but it collapses under historical scrutiny. Many early monetary systems did not use physical commodities as the primary means of exchange. Markets were not the birthplace of money. And money's earliest role was not facilitating trade. Footnote. This section summarizes the traditional definition of money and its logical shortcomings. 4. The lack of evidence for barter economies. Historical research demonstrates that barter economies, societies where goods were routinely exchanged in direct swaps, did not exist. Neither archaeology nor anthropology supports the model. Instead, gift-based obligations, authority-driven credits, and socially enforced fines appear throughout early societies. The absence of barter economies dismantles the foundation of the orthodox view. So what does that actually mean? It means money did not begin as the lubricant of exchange. It arose long before markets, and long before Robinson Crusoe-style fantasies. Footnote. This section highlights the historical absence of barter economies. 5. Money precedes markets. The earliest writing systems on Earth, cuneiform tablets, did not record poetry, stories, or even laws. They recorded money claims. Writing emerged as an accounting system, not a literary system. This alone reveals something important: money existed before markets because record-keeping existed before markets. Authorities used these records to track obligations, debts, fines, and resource flows long before coins appeared. Markets later evolved around these systems, not the other way around. Footnote. This section establishes that money historically predates markets and writing recorded monetary claims. 6. The problem with commodity money stories. Modern money has no intrinsic value, yet neither did most ancient money. Even coins often carried symbolic value rather than metallic value. When people say money works because of trust, the argument becomes circular: we trust money because others trust money. This infinite regress never resolves the central question: why do people accept money in the first place? The answer cannot rest solely on belief. Something stronger must anchor the system. Footnote. This section explains why commodity myths and trust-based explanations fail logically. 7. An alternative view, the fine-based origins of money. A compelling alternative comes from examining the ancient practice of war guild, a system where individuals paid fines for injuries inflicted on others. These fines required standardized valuations. One injury required a goat, another a cow, another several pieces of grain. Over time, communities recognized the need for a universal measurement to compare values. Here, money begins not as a tool for trade but as a tool to prevent violence. This reframes money as a legal technology, not a market technology. So what does that actually mean? It means money begins as a social obligation, enforced collectively, rather than a product of voluntary exchange. Footnote. This section introduces the fine-based anthropological origins of money. 8. Grain weights as the first units of account. Early money units, shekel, lira, pound, were originally grain weight units. Authorities used grain measurements to value cattle, labor, land, and other goods. Temples posted price lists, ensuring uniform valuations across society. Money, therefore, emerged as a unit of account before it appeared as a physical object. It existed as numbers, records, and obligations. Physical currency was merely an expression of those obligations. Footnote. This section explains that early money units were standardized grain weights used for valuation. 9. Money as a state monopoly. A more accurate definition emerges: money is the state's unit of account, enforced by the power to impose obligations. Governments decide the unit of account, maintain records, and designate what counts as payment. Each nation in modern times chooses its own currency. When states dissolve or form, they adopt new currencies as symbols of sovereignty. The rare exception, such as the euro, demonstrates the tension between political authority and shared money systems. Footnote. This section defines money as a state-controlled monetary unit tied to sovereignty. 10. Currency as an IOU. Modern currency, whether a coin, paper note, or digital entry, is simply a state IOU. It is a record of a liability. The issuing authority promises redemption, not in gold, but in the ability to extinguish obligations such as taxes. This transforms the understanding of money's value. It is not the metal. It is not the paper. It is not collective trust. It is the legal power to accept money back in payment of obligations imposed by the state. Footnote. This section identifies currency as a state-issued IOU redeemable for tax obligations. 11. Taxes drive money. The central mechanism becomes clear: taxes give money its value. When the state imposes obligations payable only in its chosen unit of account, the public must obtain that unit to satisfy the obligation. This creates demand for the currency regardless of intrinsic value. So what does that actually mean? Money is not valuable because of what it is. It is valuable because of what it cancels: state-imposed obligations. Footnote. This section describes taxation as the primary force creating demand for money.